Thanks for staying with us. According to reports, stroke is the third leading cause of death worldwide. In Nigeria, mortality rates are very high, with a range of 21% to 45%. On the show today, we have a physiotherapist, Boroji Osindero, to discuss life after stroke. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Good to have you. You see, my father died of, he had stroke, and he died 10 years after. So I understand what life after stroke means, because I had to participate in taking care of him. But for many people going through that phase now, where you have a loved one who just had stroke, and you're having to deal with caring for them, what would you say is the first step to begin that process?
I mean, definitely, as we all understand, you're left with functional dysfunctions after stroke. And so you need to educate yourself on what facilities are out there for you to take care of your loved ones. As a physiotherapist, we play a very predominant role in the care of physiotherapists, but we're actually not the only ones. Occupational therapists are also involved in their care. So educating yourself as a caregiver is, I would say, one of the best things to do. Understand what the resources are, and just how to also be able to provide emotional support for the client.
Well, let's start from the basics. Most people just, use stroke generally and think it's maybe a health condition, and in Africa we have a lot of definitions for it. Let's know what exactly leads to it, how it comes about, and what exactly is a stroke.
Okay, so simply speaking, a stroke is when there is a stoppage of blood flow to a particular part of the brain, and wherever that part of the brain controls, that area, you see functional declines in that area. And as a result, that's basically what a stroke is. We see typical patterns where one part of the brain is affected, and then the opposite side of the body has the manifestations of functional decline. So you can either have difficulty moving, or difficulty with sensation, difficulty with balance, or even just also speech issues as well, not being able to communicate.
Right.
So what would you say are some of the causes of stroke? Because just recently, I was having a conversation with someone, and she was shocked about a certain milligram of a drug I was taking. She says, this is too much to take. If it's a higher milligram, maybe you're meant to take it once a day and may lead to stroke. I didn't know that just taking over-the-counter drug could cause stroke. Is that a possibility?
I mean, definitely if you have pre-morbid conditions, so you have to also look at the type of medication that you do take. But typically the most common thing that they tell all of us is blood pressure. Checking your blood pressure, making sure that you are staying within normal guidelines. But of course, if you also have diabetes, you are at risk for a stroke.
Could trauma cause it? Because my father never had BP issues. This was a man that was perfectly healthy, exercising. He was a normal guy. And yes, there was maybe some kind of a trauma happened, and we began to see decline. He stopped talking. He never spoke again to us. I mean, he was able to move around, but speech was a major problem. Now, somebody that has that, can they still live normal lives? Because people still wonder, how do I care for somebody who I can't communicate with?
Oh, definitely. I mean, the key thing, like I said again, as a caregiver, is always to educate yourself on stroke, because people present with strokes in different ways. Exactly. And like I said, it's the part of the brain that is affected, that is manifested on the body. So if, for instance, in the case of your father, it was mostly the areas that control the speech functions, then you would be looking at seeing mostly a speech therapist, who would help you in or help him also in teaching him new techniques to be able to either communicate, because that's really where his deficit is being manifested. And also for you as the caregiver, teaching you ways in which you can communicate with him, because also a big issue with a lot of our stroke clients we are finding is depression, because you've lived a fairly decent, normal, functioning life, and then this accident happens, and then you're now all of a sudden not able to do something that you were able to do earlier.
Are they, sorry, to follow up, are they conscious of this? Because I used to worry, when you try to communicate with the eyes with my dad then, I tried to, is he aware that we're trying to communicate with him? Does he understand, or is he in a totally different world?
No. If there's no actual cognitive deficit, which is another functional limitation that can occur, then yes, he will be aware. And so that's why the emotional support is very important, because you have to understand that you're dealing with someone who maybe wants to move their hand, and of course they can't. They know they're thinking it and they're willing it, but the movement isn't coming. Wow. So they are, in some cases, very much aware.
That's a tough one. So is total cure possible? You know, as a physiotherapist, is there a routine that you do? My mom suffered partial stroke. She's well now. You know, is it possible that, you know, they have complete cure? She's usually complaining, you know, I don't want to do anything anymore. I don't want to, maybe I overdid something, you know. Can they get their lives back, really?
I mean, definitely, yes. I mean, the role of the physiotherapy and all the members of the rehabilitation team is basically to improve the function of the client. And really, to be able to improve the function, we need to intervene in the care of the patient. So as physios, we try and see the patients as often as possible. Occupational therapists also intervene. They see as often as possible. And really, the recovery in the first, I would say, 4 months is really it's the highest chance of getting the most recovery. And so we try and bombard a lot of our sessions within that period, as particularly at the centers. So age is another thing that most people sort of assume is a factor that may lead to maybe not having as high recovery. But actually, research has shown that it doesn't. So even in your 80s, if you do get a stroke, as long as you are getting intervention within that first 4 months, you know, and of course, quite longer, so I'm not limiting to the 4 months, but really, in that period, you have as good a chance as anybody else.
Let me take this call. I mean, I wish we knew this 10 years ago. Ismail from Maiduguri, thanks for calling. Are you there?
Yes, I'm here. Good morning.
Go ahead, please. You're live. Listen to me. Don't listen to the TV.
My question to Dr. Life after stroke.
You're listening to yourself, Ismail. Please listen to us.
What happened to have stroke in the left side?
Okay, I think we lost that call.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Given what you just said about, you know, just I'm thinking, is coma a form of stroke then, being in coma? Because we're told that they're aware, some of them are aware of their surroundings, but they're just unable to do anything. Is that a form of stroke? Or just
no, that's just totally different. Yes,
okay.
Exactly. Basically, the stroke is when, like I said, the part of the brain has been affected because of the lack of blood flow. And wherever that brain part controls, that's where you get the manifestations. And so, like you mentioned, it could also be cognitive. So in cases where you'll see signs of dementia coming in because all of a sudden their cognition has been more affected. And so in those cases, if they are functioning well in terms of walking and moving around, then it's more of the occupational therapist that would work with them to make sure that they're helping them on re-educating them back to, you know, functional activities within the cognitive experience.
Let me take Dada. Come to you, Nima. Dada from Kaduna State. Good morning. Are you there? Thanks for calling.
Good morning.
Morning, sir. You're live. Go ahead, please.
Thank you so much. That's my first time calling you.
Welcome to the show. Are you there, Dada? Please go ahead.
Actually, what I wanted to ask is this. Some people believe that in treating people that are having stroke, it's better for them to be taken to herbal care rather than using, you know, the medication, like the English medication for them. And I had an experience recently. Somebody that's very close to me, where I work, collapsed and was taken for herbal medication, and I was actually kicking against it. But after 2 or 3 days, I saw him back where we work, and he's been doing fine, and been working well. So my question is that: is it better for people that have that kind of challenge to be treated herbally or medically?
Thank you very much. Yes.
Yeah, that's a very good question. I think the important thing to understand is that, like, as I explained earlier, a stroke is like an accident in the brain. But, you know, God's so good, as would say, any injury that you have, the body already starts to try and correct itself. And so by trying to correct itself, even if it was a very mild stroke, there is a chance that even without intervention, you might actually get recovery. There's a mini form of a stroke called a TIA, that's a transient ischemic attack. And that just means that the blood flow was blocked to that part of the brain for a very short moment. So when you have such an attack, you probably will collapse, but within a very short period, you may regain, you will regain all your functional capacities. So in such a case, it may be that you go to a herbal doctor and then it looks like you bounce back. But truthfully, if you do have a very aggressive stroke with all these functional limitations, you are not likely to improve with herbal medicine, because the way the brain responds for recovery when you have had a stroke is for you to constantly bombard the brain with exercises that will start to reteach the brain those things that it was doing before. So the medication is only in the initial part of the accident in the hospital to to obviously correct the damage in the brain. But right after that, the physio and the occupational therapy start to work on actually working on the nerves in the brain to make sure that there's recovery of your actual functions.
So thank you, Dada. I was going to ask about recovery, because you said, an accident to the side, and lack of supply to the side, a side of the brain.
Exactly.
Is it possible that that side, recovers and, gets blood later? But I guess you've answered the question.
Yes.
I wanted to talk about unconventional methods of treatment, not necessarily the herbal ones that you mentioned. Some people come with this, Chinese therapy of massages and all of that. What exactly, how true? The Arabs use cupping. They do a lot of other forms of treatment. What other conventional methods?
Definitely, we employ different methods of treatment. There's constraint-induced therapies. There's electrotherapy that is also used. There are Bobath techniques that are employed also in treating. And I think the method that each person uses really depends on how you see your patient present. Like I said, most patients, because they present so differently, it's almost difficult to say that there's one form of treatment that can be used. And, back in the early years when physiotherapy was really at the beginning, we had different physiotherapy fathers, Bobath being one of them. He came up with his own approach, which was basically, as long as you keep weight bearing on the area, the body is going to keep remembering that that area is there, because sometimes they lose that part. And then there's also the motor control theory, which also involves you just using the area and, practicing the skill that area has lost. So it really just depends on what the physiotherapist decides that they want to use
in
at
this
that
part
time.
of the world, a lot of, it's not my portion, it's not your portion. It can never happen to us. And when we get this diagnosis, the first thing we do is we call a prayer meeting, we fast and pray. As a physiotherapist, when you come across people that use this attitude and say that, listen, it's not about the medical, how do you approach this kind of people? What would you say to these kinds of people?
We just try and talk to them and educate them, and you'll be surprised. We still see people like that at the moment, But it's really educating them and then letting them understand that, okay, if you really believe in this other, this spiritual side, you can work on that and allow us to work on the physical side. So there's definitely a lot of support that even as a physiotherapist we have to give, because if the patient isn't really ready or motivated to participate, then you really don't get much out of them. So you have to find a balance where they also understand that, okay, I'll let her do that, and
Let me take this call from Port Harcourt. Good morning, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
You're live. Go ahead, please. Alex, you're live. Go ahead, please.
Okay. Mine is a comment. First of all, we have difficulty in connecting to the program. I've tried several times. And back to the topic, the physiotherapists have not told people the cost of their services. It's so expensive. I faced this challenge when my dad had stroke 10 years ago till he died. It was so expensive, 27,000 every 2 weeks. It was so expensive. She should tell us how much they charge now, currently.
Thank you, Alex.
All right.
Okay, you think you had mentioned earlier about the kind of support that a carer would require for someone who has a stroke, and definitely financial support is definitely one of those things as well, because unfortunately, depending on the level of functional decline that the person experienced, rehabilitation is something that can occur from 1 month to almost 9 months to even a year to 2 years. So, you know, it's definitely requires a lot of planning and understanding of how you know, what the person's situation is like and how you expect them to continue during that period. So I would say it's the other thing that I would also mention is also trying to look for the foundations. I think that might be another thing. You know, there are some foundations that are supporting people with strokes, and that's another thing that you might look into. But definitely the cost really varies. I'll have to be honest with you. It does, across the state, across the nation.
Yeah. So I've seen, when the stadium was open, I would see people who seem to be struggling with, you know, lack of movement in some parts of their bodies, and they are working with personal trainers. So I'm wondering if, in a case where someone may not be able to afford a physiotherapist, are personal trainers qualified to help people like that?
I think probably at a later stage, but the thing about it is the body is going to start compensating once you've had a stroke and you're not actually giving it the right physiotherapy. It's going to start doing something. That's the way we were designed. So recovery will start coming in one form or the other. It just may not come the way you want it. You and I, we're grateful. We walk in a straight line. There's no problems. Yeah. But if you've had a stroke and you know you're working with someone who is not necessarily understanding what the mechanics of walking or gait should look like, they could probably help you, but not the way a physio would. Because really for us, we have specialized in motion, we have specialized in mobility, and so, and obviously other things. So when you're working with the right specialist, then you are really working to achieve what you...
On Twitter, Andrew is asking, food as medicine, what are the foods that can reduce stroke, since Nigeria has a very bad health system?
I would just say anything that doesn't raise your blood pressure. So just looking at a well-balanced diet and making sure that, you know...
Let's go to that importance of the blood. The blood, because obviously from what you're saying, when blood doesn't get to the brain, certain regions, that's what causes stroke. Could you explain to Nigerians the importance of the blood and how to keep our blood healthy, what to do to ensure that we have healthy blood, and how to ensure the passage to the brain is not impaired or is not deterred in any way?
I think the key thing is, as Nigerians, we just need to now become more health conscious. You know, the incidence of stroke also increases as we increase in age. I think they say it doubles once you get over the age of 45. So your chance of getting a stroke increases, depending on also if you have any other premorbid conditions as well. So it's really to get more, to have an understanding of our health at all times, making sure that we're all doing health checks annually, checking your blood pressure, checking your blood sugar. Those are the things that really are important, and managing your diet.
Would you say sedentary lifestyle can be a problem too when it comes to being more susceptible to stroke?
Yeah, because obviously after you get to a certain age, you need to be a lot more active, and exercise is definitely very important for all of us.
Let me take this call from Suleiman. Thanks for calling. Are you there?
Yes, I'm there.
You're live. Go ahead, please.
Yes, I'm here. Sulaiman from Laro State.
You're live. Go ahead, please.
My question is, what is the connection between diabetes, hypertension to stroke?
Okay, so basically if you're hypertensive, then basically what's happening is that there's more pressure coming into the brain. And the kind of stroke you have can either be ischemic, which is a blockage, or it could be that there's excessive blood flow. And that's the connection that you have between, if you're hypertensive, it will now affect the type of stroke that you have.
I have one on a lighter note. You know, usually when I hear of physiotherapists, I think they're big, burly men. So to see you as a physiotherapist, is there a type of physiotherapy that you do where you just talk to them, or are you involved in carrying people and helping them move?
Definitely very involved in carrying and helping them move. I don't think size really matters much as a physiotherapist. We learn in school to use our bodies. Otherwise, if you're just using your hands, then of course they get stressed. But definitely it's a job that you have to be physically fit to be able to participate in, but also understanding body mechanics so that you're sure that you don't injure your own back as well.
Rabiat Joke Abdul is asking how can stroke be prevented, but I wanted you to talk about the connection with diabetes. You know, you've addressed the one with blood pressure.
Yes. So it's basically, again, once you are diabetic and you are not able to control your blood sugars, you are just more at risk of developing a stroke.
So how do you prevent? Based on the tweets.
Prevention.
It's what we just discussed.
Yeah,
just having a healthy diet, making sure you monitor your blood pressure and your blood sugars.
Okay, we're going to wrap up very soon, but I wanted to ask you, because you sound very knowledgeable about this topic and like a very successful physiotherapist. I hope you're not leaving to Canada soon. Because none of you are traveling to Canada. I hope you're in Nigeria. Are you here?
I'm based in Nigeria. We have a facility on the island, Victoria Island.
Yeah.
And
you're here, you full ground.
Yes.
For now.
I'm here.
No,
for for sure.
Thank God. Thank God. Good to know that some Nigerians are still staying behind. Thank you very much for sharing this with us, Money, because the truth is that there are people dealing with stroke right now, and caregivers are clueless on how to even go about helping their loved ones. But thank you for shedding light on this. That's all we can take on the show today. I hope you've learned quite a few, as we have. Have a fabulous day. See you tomorrow. Bye for now.